Hello everyone, welcome to today's lecture. This is the first lecture in the series and in the course, that is the Psych course 1, Basics of Clinical Learning. I am Dr. Manish Roshan Thakur. I have done my MD Psychiatry from Department of Psychiatry at AIIMS, New Delhi. So in today's lecture, we'll be mostly focusing on one aspect of the course, that is the neurocognitive function, the various headings of the neurocognitive function, how to do the test, the referenced definition of each and every heading, how to rate judgment and insight, and various scales of insight. Mostly, we'll be looking into the definitions from CTP and from Strub and Black. So let's begin with the first and heading, that is in the neurocognitive function, and the first heading is of orientation. So if you look into the orientation is defined as the state of awareness of oneself and of surrounding with respect to time, place, and person. So this is the standard definition in CTP 10th edition. It has been given and states that it is the state of awareness of oneself and of surrounding with respect to time, place, and person. So on assessing the orientation, we have to look into time, place, and person. So when looking into the time, we can ask the patient regarding what time of day it is. We can also ask the patient that if he or she can tell the approximate time. Don't use or give the cue to the patient that it is day or night. Let the patient answer by himself. Let him or her answer. If he or she is able to answer that it is day or night, then you switch forward and do ask to tell the approximate time. Similarly, if we look into the second component of orientation, that is the place, we can definitely ask them to tell regarding the current place of stay, regarding the ward number, regarding the floor in which they are staying, and regarding the bed number. So by this, we can get a fair enough idea regarding the orientation towards the place. With respect to the person, you can ask about the nearby attendant, the nursing staff, the JR or the SR that has been looking after the patient. So once you're done with the assessment of orientation, you can definitely give the interpretation by saying that the patient is oriented to time, place, and person. If by chance patient is not oriented to time, so how to report? You can report by saying that the patient is oriented to place and person and it is not oriented to time. So this is the complete interpretation of orientation. Looking into the second component of neurocognitive function, that is attention and concentration. So first we should know the definition of attention and concentration. So if we look into the definition that has been given in Strub and Black. So Strub and Black, 4th edition. So what is the definition of attention in Strub and Black? So it is the ability of an individual to focus on a specific stimulus. This is the first part of the definition, that is ability of the individual to focus on a specific stimulus, and in continuation to that only, without getting distracted by external or internal stimuli. So this is the definition of attention. Similarly, if we look into the definition of concentration, so how it has been defined, concentration according to Strub and Black, the same textbook. It is a very standard textbook for neurocognitive functions, so definitely do refer to it. How the concentration has been defined. So it is defined as the ability to maintain attention for a specific stimuli for an extended period of time. So let's revise and look into the important parts of it. So first is the attention. So it is defined as the ability to focus on a specific stimulus without getting distracted. Looking into the concentration, it is the ability to maintain attention for a specific stimuli for an extended period of time. So attention is first defined, and on top of that, in easier terms, we can say that sustained attention is concentration. So so this is the concept box that we can definitely get into. Okay, so that concentration is the sustained attention. So one more important thing that comes into the play is then what is vigilance? We all should be able to differentiate concentration from vigilance. It is one of the important terms. So defining vigilance is you have to keep a distinction between vigilance, attention, and concentration. So let's write down the important points in definition of vigilance. This is also according to the Strum and Black book. It is the sense of alertness. Basic, referring to basic arousal process. In which the awake person can respond to any stimuli in the environment. So let's focus on the important part. It is the sense of alertness. That is the basic arousal process in which the awake person can respond to any stimuli. As opposed to specific stimuli in concentration, it refers to any stimuli that you can focus in the environment, and it is the basic arousal process. So these three terms, that is attention, concentration, and vigilance, are important. So this is for attention. This is the concentration definition. And the third one is the vigilance. Okay. So we are clear with the concepts and the definition. Let's now focus on to the testing of attention and concentration. So how to test for attention? And concentration. So the first is the serial subtraction test. So there are three serial subtraction tests that you can actually employ. Well, first is the 100 minus 7. That is the standard one. So you can ask the patient. I'll definitely give the instructions. Let me first write all the tests. So what is the important instructions that has to be given to the patient? First of all, you have to demonstrate by giving an example. This is the first thing that you have to do. You just give an example like 50 minus 5 is 45, and then you keep on doing the subtraction by yourself and make the patient familiar with the test. That if you start doing subtracting 5 out of 50, it will be 45. And if you keep on doing it, it will be 40, 35, 30, 25, 20, and so on. So first and foremost, you have to give an example. Second, don't nod or say yes, or whether or indicate whether the answer correct or not. Don't do it. Like if, for example, the patient starts doing 100 minus 7, 93, 86, 79. Instead of 79, if he says 78, don't look at him, don't frown at him, don't say yes, don't say no, don't say whether he or she is correct or not. Just ask him to continue and complete the test. Okay. So these are the general instructions that you should follow while conducting a serial subtraction test. And regarding the interpretation, what you can do is maximum 2 mistakes are allowed. More than 2, the patient has failed the test. So for example, if the individual is not able to do 100 minus 7, you can definitely try with other simpler versions of them, 40 minus 3 or 20 minus 1. But if the person is able to give 2 or more than 2 incorrect answer, then definitely the test has failed. There is also another criteria for failing, or if the to rate whether the individual has passed or failed the particular test, that is the time criteria. What is the time criteria for it? So if you look into the time criteria for the serial subtraction test, it is as follows. Like for example, 100 minus 7, the total time duration given is 2 minutes. For 40 minus 3, the time duration given is 1 minute. And for 20 minus 1, the total time duration given is 15 seconds. So suppose if an individual is not able to do the complete serial subtraction test in a period of 2 minutes, then definitely the individual is said to have failed that particular test. Accordingly, the time frame has been given for each and every 3 of the tests. Fine. So let's look into the another, what are the other tests in attention and concentration. So the second test in this list is the digit forward and the digit backward test. So digit forward test and digit backward test. So with an example that has already been given in stubborn black, I would be demonstrating the particular test. See. So this is the test that I'm talking about, the digit forward and the digit backward test. The sequence is given in such a form. So what you have to do is, first and foremost, you have to give an example that you say that I'll be demonstrating the test first. So first is to demonstrate the test. Example you can do is like you give 2, 5, and you say by digit forward, I mean that I have to repeat again 2, and 5. Similarly, if you are giving the example for digit backward test, you say that if you say 2 and 5, the answer should be 5 followed by 2. Make the patient familiar with the test. Second, the speed. You have to say the digit at 1 digit per second. That is the speed. So you don't have to say 2579. You have to say 2579. That is 1 digit per second. Third, don't say digit in pair. That is, paired digits are not allowed. So this is not allowed. Paired digits are not at all allowed. By paired digits, I mean that don't say, for example, if you're giving 5 digits, 29847. Don't say 29847. That it means that you're clubbing the first two and clubbing the last three. Don't say it like that. Just follow this the speed technique, that is 1 digit per second. Avoid clubbing. What is the next most important thing? Don't give a particular sequence. So it means that 2, 4, 6, 8, it is a sequence of even numbers. Similarly, 1, 3, 5, 7, it is a sequence of odd numbers. Similarly, other sequence like Fibonacci sequence, that should be given. So avoid sequence. These are the 4 important rules that you have to follow while doing the digit forward test or digit backward test. So how to do the test? For example, if you have demonstrated the test, you just start by saying 3, 7. The patient will be giving the answer 3, 7. Suppose the patient is making mistake in 29683, this line, 29683. So what will you do is, like, you again give the same patient, like for example, if the mistake has been made, you just repeat another sequence with the same number of digits. Suppose here you can give another 5-digit sequence. And if the patient again makes a mistake, you stop there. So if the patient is making mistake on first sequence in a 5-digit sequence, give another, that is the second time. If also in the second time the patient is making mistake, stop there and start rating by just subtracting 1 digit from the total number of digits. So the patient is unable to recall 5 digits. So the digit forward test is 4 digit, means that up to 4 digit the patient was giving correct answer. Similarly, you can also do for the backward digits also. So now, as we have seen that these are the various rules and this is how you do this digit forward and the digit backward, let's look into the interpretation of this. So digit forward and digit backward, the interpretations are as follows. So according to Strub and Black, it has been said that 5 plus minus 2, it means the patient has passed the test. So how to write or interpret attention and concentration? So it is defined as aroused and sustained. So this is how you report aroused and sustained for attention and concentration. Third important heading is memory. So what is memory? Again, it has been defined in Strub and Black. See, all these definitions are very important because these forms a part of your MSc definition and it has been asked again repeatedly on a number of occasions by your viva, in your examiner, by your examiner, and also in your grand rounds or in your ward rounds also. So be aware of these definitions. What is the definition? It is defined as the mental process which helps person to store information for later recall. It involves 3 components. immediate, recent, and remote. So immediate is again, how to define immediate? Immediate is defined as ability to recall registered information after an interval of few seconds. So this is the definition according to Black. So it is defined as the ability to recall. That is, recall is there, the registered information. So first of all, you have to do the registration of the information, and then you have to make the patient recall that particular information. That is why this test for immediate memory involves two processes. First is the registration, and second is the recall. So you have to do the registration, and then you have to do the recall. So how to do the registration? Definitely you can give 3 items. These items should be non-related. These items should not be present in your vicinity. And these items should be in cultural relations with patient. So for example, if the patient is a vegetable seller, you can't give him a rocket or a space shuttle. So be it in realm of the patient. So for example, if we can give the like for registration, we can give 3 important or 3 of the items. Like for example, we can give one emotion you can use, one color you can use, and one object you can use. For example, the emotion is happiness. In Hindi, you can call it as khushi. Color, you can give it as yellow. And object, you can give as horse. So these are all unrelated items. And various aspects have also been covered. This you have to ask the patient to register. So you'll be uttering these words and then you'll be asking the patient to repeat it after you. So if the patient repeats 3 out of the 3, you can say that registration is 3 by 3. Then after some time, according to Black, you have to make the patient recall these 3 words. Okay. So accordingly, if the patient is able to recall 3 out of 3, you have rated by 3 out of 3. Or if the patient is recalling only 2 out of 3, rated as 2 by 3 or 1 by 3 accordingly. Fine. So this is the immediate memory. Coming to the recent memory. What is the definition of recent memory? That is also defined as the ability to register new information. See the difference. It is not the registered information or recall part. This is just the ability to register the new information and retrieve after some period. It can be day, month, or hours. Usually we take it for hour. Like what is the example that we usually ask is to recall all the events since morning. So the duration of recall is usually in form of hours. Although it's Black, the total duration has been referred as minute, hours, or days, but usually we take into consideration only the hours. So for example, we can ask the patient to recall events since morning. If the patient is able to do so, corroborate it with the attendant. So attendance corroboration is important. So this you have to do. Whatever information patient is saying, just don't take it. Do corroborate it with the attendant. Fine. Let's move into the third part of the memory. See, I'm really completing all these aspects in a standardized manner, but I'm going slow just because you have to understand the importance of the definition, and you have to know how to do these tests. Fine. Coming to the remote memory, it is defined as recall of facts or events that has occurred in distant past. So what are the various questions that you can ask? You can ask the date of birth, you can ask the date of marriage, you can ask the address, you can ask the address of school that the patient has attended, similarly address of college. You can accordingly ask them. Okay, so once we are done with the immediate, recent and the remote memory, how to give the interpretation as a whole? So interpretation of memory, it includes that memory is intact. Then you name whether the immediate is intact, remote is intact, or recent is intact. So if all are intact, definitely say it, that immediate, recent, and remote memory are intact. If, for example, immediate memory is not intact, then what you do by saying that remote and the recent memories are intact, but immediate memory is not intact. Similarly, it goes for the remote and the recent. If they are not intact, you can accordingly say that. Fine. Now let's come to another. This is the third in the sequence. So we have covered orientation, we have covered attention and concentration, we have covered memory. Now let's come to the fourth heading. So the fourth heading is the intelligence. So what is the definition of intelligence? So it is defined as the ability to think logically, act rationally, deal effectively. So the components are think logically, act rationally, and deal effectively with the environments and situation. So this is defined as intelligence. That is the ability to think rationally, think logically, act rationally, and deal effectively. Okay. Now, how to do the intelligence testing? So here the testing includes three components. The first is the general fund of knowledge. The second is the comprehension, and third is the arithmetic. Arithmetic, it includes both the simple and the complex. Fine. So let's look into the general fund of knowledge. The first is the general fund of knowledge. I request everyone to make notes of it so that it will be beneficial for you. At the end, you don't have to look around here and there, although the video will be there with you, so don't worry. But yeah, to make a note of it so that it get registered with your memory. So general fund of knowledge. So what is the usual question that we ask? We ask regarding, so what is the various instruction that you have to follow? The first is the general fund of knowledge. As the name says that it is the general fund. So you don't have to ask regarding anything specific. It has to be something that is general to all. So if you ask regarding schizophrenia to a patient or to a person, he or she might know, might also not know. So it is not something which is in general with the public or known to public. However, if you ask regarding fever, the patient might be able to answer regarding it. So you have to ask something which is in general to that of the population. Usually, it is usually asked also, like this question is also asked in relation to their occupation, to their cultural background. So these things you have to be aware while asking the general fund of knowledge. So what questions usually are asked is to name 5 cities, 5 rivers. So you can ask them to name the 5 cities. You can ask them to name the 5 rivers. You can ask them to also to name the 5 crops if the patient belongs to a farmer background, or 5 different types of pulses. Usually what happens that in our college, people like the faculty or the examiner, they usually ask that 5 cities, whether you have asked it or not, 5 rivers, whether you have asked it or not. So try asking them. If, for example, if an individual is there who is not able to ask 5 cities, 5 rivers, so what you do is you keep on asking in relation to their occupation and also in relation to their cultural background. So for example, like of lately I saw a boy, he was around 13, 14 years. He was not able to answer the 5 rivers and 5 cities. So I asked him regarding the 5 YouTube channel, which he was able to answer, the 5 of them. I asked him regarding 5 video games. He was able to answer. I asked him regarding the 5 subjects which he is interested in his school. He was able to answer. So don't stop by all those rudimentary questions or the questions that has been ongoing and were meant to be asked. Okay, do ask them, but if a patient is not able to answer it, don't stop here only. Like you shouldn't be stopping here, that if the patient not able to ask, you can move forward and devise your own set of questions. In Strub and Black also, they have given a list of questions, and they have also asked to ask them according to the specific culture background. So for example, if a villager or a person from a village comes, he or she might not be able to know the various type of YouTube channel or the name of of the YouTube channel. You can ask regarding 5 months. You can ask regarding the seasons. You can ask regarding whether he or she is aware of the days of the week or not. Ask them to name 5 fruits also. So accordingly, it can be, like general fund of knowledge can be assessed accordingly. You don't have to stick into those straightforward questions which we have been asking. Although you should ask, but once if the patient is not able to answer, you can definitely look into their occupation, into their cultural background and move forward. And once the patient is able to answer, yes, get into the next question, that is your comprehension. Comprehension means to understand. In English terms, it means understand the context or the situation. So whether an individual is able to understand a context or situation or not, that is being tested while we are testing comprehension. You can give 3 such situations or 3 such contexts. For example, I can give rain, bank, bus. I can give these 3 situations that if it is raining and if he or she has to go to an important place or an important work is there, what he or she would be doing in that situation. Similarly, for the bank, you can ask regarding what one does in a bank, or what is the use of the bank, or what is the bank meant for. You can also answer regarding the situation of rain associated with important work. That is, a work has to be done, but it is raining. How he or she would be doing in that situation. Also for the bus, that is, the bus has left and you have to visit an important place. What should be done? So the patient might answer in a very different manner. Again, you have to remember that you have to assess whether that individual is able to understand the particular context or not. That is, the answers are coming in these contexts or not, the rain, the bus, the bank situation or not. You don't have to judge whether the answer are correct or not. You just have to look into the situation that, okay, fine, the patient was able to understand. I'm asking about the rain situation. So for example, if you ask regarding the rain situation, the patient might say that I'll stop, I'll not go outside, I'll definitely stop outside and wait for the rain to stop, then I'll be going and do my work. However, the work may be of utmost importance to him. Another patient might say that, okay, if it is raining, I'll go outside, I'll not bother whether I'll get wet or not, but I'll ultimately do the work then and there only. Some people might say, definitely, if it is raining, I'll book a cab, I'll book a bus, or I'll go through train. So situations, the answer might vary, but that situation of rain has been addressed to while answering. That is important. So you can give 3, and usually 2 out of 3 is the preferred answer. Then we can test for arithmetic. So the third in this part is arithmetic. Arithmetic, the first is the simple one. The simple doesn't involve multiple steps. So multiple step calculation, usually it is avoided. So what you do is give addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. So you can give them and you can ask them to answer verbally. Okay. Then regarding the complex. So what you do in complex, there is a situation given, like for example, you can say a very common example which we use is like it involves multiple steps. So here multiple steps are allowed. Here the multiple steps were not allowed. That is important. So what you do is like you are having 100 rupees, then you have to buy 3 pencil and 3 pens. So this is the first step of calculation, that you have to say that each pencil cost around 3 rupees each and each pen cost around 5 rupees each. So what is the amount of money he or she will get at the end? So first step was this, that he or she has to multiply it, and the second step is to divide the total by 100. Okay, so the total amount will be reflected. So it involved multiple steps. Similarly, you can ask them, look into Stubborn Black, they have given specific questions. Although it has also been mentioned that you can use your own questions according to the situation. Again, the occupation, the cultural background takes into the consideration that if an illiterate person comes, or if he or she is not aware regarding the pencil and the pen, you can definitely ask them in their terms what they are aware of. For example, if they are aware of sticks, bamboo sticks, you can ask them, three bamboo sticks cost so much amount of money, or three cauliflower, three cabbage. So ultimately you can devise your questions according to the situation. Fine. So we have done three tests. One is the arithmetic, which involves both the simple one and the complex one. We have done the comprehension, and then we have done the general fund of knowledge. So these are the three important tests or subheadings that comes under intelligence. Okay. Now what we do is we'll look into the other heading. So till now we have done orientation, we have done attention concentration, we have done memory, we have done intelligence. Now it is time to look into the fifth component, that is abstraction. So what is the definition of abstraction? This is according to CTP 10th edition. It is given in chapter number 7. Okay, look into that definition of abstraction. It means, so here I'll be giving you the important words or keywords that has been mentioned in the definition. What are they? It is defined as the thinking, which is characterized by, number one, ability to grasp the essential of a whole, break a whole context into various parts, and to discern common properties out of it. So this has been given in the text. In the definition, what they have mentioned, that is given in the table. So always remember the definition that has been given in the table. Okay, this is just for understanding that the individual should be able to break a particular context, that is a whole context, into small parts, and to derive and to individually analyze the small parts and to give the answer as per the common properties with these parts. So this is just for understanding, that is the concept building. In the definition that has been given in the table, the definition says that the process whereby thoughts or ideas are generalized, that is the first important thing, generalized and dissociated from particular concrete instances. So here also the important terms are generalization of thoughts from particular concrete instances. So particular concrete instances. So these are the three key terms or three key things that you have to remember while defining abstraction. It means that, for example, if this is a concrete thing that we are giving to the patient should be able to break it into a number of small parts to look into the common properties and then to answer that common property that is common to these individual parts of the original material. So with the example, you'll be able to understand it in a much more refined manner. So for example, we can give, so here the two tests are, first is for similarities and the second is for proverbs. So similarities in Strub and Black, it has been given that you can do the scoring by 0, 1, 2 according to the response. So for example, if I ask what is the similarity between an aeroplane and a truck. So for example, if the individual says that the aeroplane flies and the truck runs on road, so that becomes wrong. It is the differences. It is not the similarity. So always remember that, as previously we have discussed, that all the tests should be made. First, you should be doing it in front of the patient, making him or her understand the test. Later on, you'll be giving the various situations. So in this situation, definitely give one of the examples, then you give a particular test. So if the person is not able to find it, or if you say something like that it flies and it is runs on the road, it is a wrong answer because it is not showing the similarities. So if the individual says that these are modes of transport, then this is one of the common answer which is there in common, that it is also a mode of transport, it is also a mode of transport. He or she can say that it is a mode of transport carrying less number of person. It is a mode of transport in which it carries more number of person. Then again, this answer is correct because mode of transport is there, although the person has included more number and less number. Similarly, you can ask regarding the famous apple and orange. So in apple and orange, if the person says that they are fruits, it is an accepted answer. If they say these are round in shape, so these are it is also accepted, only that according to Strub and Black, this can be given as a score of 2 and this can be given as a score of 1. And if they are saying that apple is red and orangish yellow in color, then these are the differences. These are not the similarity. So you can rate it as 0. So according to this, you can do 5 such examples that has been mentioned in Strub and Black. Why do I refer to Strub and Black is that they have given the 5 in increasing order of difficulty. So if an individual is able to answer the first situation, you can give the second situation, third situation, fourth situation, or 5 situation. So if by chance your patient is able to answer till 3, more or less the abstraction is there. It is not semi-concrete or concrete. We'll definitely look into that when we'll write the impression. So this is how you do the similarities. Coming to the proverbs. Again, things that you have to keep in mind while testing proverb is it has to be in the cultural boundaries of the patient. It has to be in the local communicable language. You can take the help of the relatives and the attendants in this. Also, the education status. If you're asking it for a person who has just passed class 6, he or she might not be able to answer the toughest of the proverbs. But if an individual has passed class 12th or has done a higher level of education, he or she might be able to ask the answer the same proverb. So take into consideration the cultural boundaries the local communicable language, and the third is the education status. And then first demonstrate. Always and always remember that while doing the neurocognitive function, this is very important. Demonstration. Always demonstrate. You just give one example and you give the interpretation. So as I'm currently staying at Delhi and I've been speaking Hindi along with English, so I can definitely give one proverb in Hindi. For example, ऊँट के मुंह में जीरा. So those of you who are able to understand Hindi, it means that if an individual has been eating around 4 to 5 chapati and 2 bowl of rice, if I'm just giving him 2 spoon of rice and one very small piece of half a piece of chapati, it won't be able to fulfill his hunger. So if the individual is able to explain the proverb, then he has been passing the test. You can similarly do 3 such tests. If the patient is making mistake, you can continue till 5 and then you can score it accordingly out of 5. So at the end, how to give the impression. So in the impression, how do you write? You can write that abstraction intact or full abstraction. You can write semi-abstract, or you can write concrete. Suppose if the individual says apple and orange, he says apple is apple and orange is orange. And similarly, if you ask 5 or even if you ask 7, all such answers has been given. For example, if you ask aeroplane and truck, you say aeroplane is airplane, truck is truck. So the score will be 0. The scoring system is there only in stubborn black. However, most of the colleges and universities, they don't follow it. They just look into the total number of responses out of 5, how many correct responses are there, and accordingly they will ask. Okay, so also in the proverb, you can test for 5 proverbs and total number of correct answers or responses. 3 out of 5 means that the individual has passed it, and accordingly in the similarities one. So based on that, you can give, if the individual has scored a 0 or has not given at all a correct answer, it is concrete. Or if the individual has given correct answer, but the answer is not up to that level. For example, if individual has given such an answer, for example, if he has given apple and orange, both are round, both are like, instead of saying fruit, they have given both are round. Also, like for example, if you ask regarding pea and for example chili, so instead of saying that these are fruit, that these are vegetable, he says that these are green elongated objects. So the level of abstraction is not that much, although it is also not less to call it as concrete. It is something in between, so you can rate it as semi abstract. But it all depends on the cultural, the education, and also the local communication language, whether he or she is able to understand the particular situation or not. Fine. Let's go into the another heading, that is the judgment. So what is defined as judgment? Judgment is according to CTP 10th edition. All these definitions are from standard text. So judgment. So it is defined as the mental act of comparing and evaluating choices within the framework of given set of values. So mental act of comparing and evaluating choices within the framework of given set of values. This is the first part of the definition. And in continuation to that, the second part says that uh, for the purpose of deciding the course of action. Okay. So if the course of action is being chosen according to the reality or according to the adult standard or the mature standard. So if the individual is having schizophrenia or having psychosis, and if you start assessing for the judgment, so first of all, judgment doesn't mean that you will be asking anything. First of all, you have to give a situation. We'll look into the various three type of judgment that, or the three ways in which the judgment can be assessed. Okay, so the important thing is how the individual chooses the course of action, and also how the individual is able to give the answer or the course of action according to the adult standards. Okay, so for assessing judgment, one is the test judgment, one is the social judgment, and one is the personal judgment. So social judgment is looked upon the behavior in the ward. It is not just the behavior towards the treating doctor or the treating team. It is also the behavior towards the other ward mates, nursing staff. Also, it will include the behavior towards the treating team. Person, you'll give a set of situation that after the discharge or after the treatment is done, what is the further course of action which he or she plans to take? Then accordingly, if the answer it matches according to the standard of the patient, that is why it has been mentioning the adult set of standards, then only you can say that the personal judgment is intact. If the patient is still suspicious in the ward, even though the behavior is you can say that the behavior is improved, if the patient is having psychopathology, active psychopathology, and the behavior somehow he is able to like the interaction is improved, the behavior is improved, still in persistence with the active psychopathology, social judgment remains impaired, because he or she would not be able to carry out the acts that an individual does in social realms with the existing psychopathology. In test, you can give three situations again. These three situations can be the letter situation, the child situation, and the fire situation. So for example, if you ask regarding the letter, you can say that, for example, there is a letter there in the road. What would we be doing? So if he says that he'll be taking up the letter and keeping it, that is also fine. If he says that he'll be not looking at the letter, somebody might have done some black magic, why to touch the letter? That is also fine with the answer. It depends upon the current status of the patient. So you won't be expecting to get a particular answer. Don't expect the patient to answer in your understanding. Let him or her answer according to the standard of the current situation, current standard of the patient. Okay. Similarly, can be asked regarding the child. So if a child is there in the road, he or she has been injured and is alone, what will the person do? So similarly, you can answer. Also regarding the fire, if there is fire situation in the ward, what he or she will be planning to intend. So these are specific situation based things. So it is called as test. For example, if the individual is able to give, is having social judgment and test judgment intact, but personal judgment is not intact, what would be the interpretation? As we have seen that most of the above, we have taken the majority, but in the judgment, always remember, this is very important. This is not something to be rated on gradation. It means that grading is not done. If the patient is wrong in any of these three, be it the person be it the personal, be it the social, or be it the test. If the individual has failed in any of these three, you have to label as impaired judgment. Okay, remember this. If any situation is not answered according to the adult standards. So this you have to practice a number of times whenever you are doing your mental status examination and neurocognitive function. So by this, we come to the last part of it, of the discussion of today, that is insight. This is something which is very important and this is a must-read topic. Individual questions also do come regarding insight. Okay. So whenever you are reading insight, do read what are the definitions for insight, what is the classification of insight which currently is there in CTP, how the insight has been classified. So currently, as we know that the insight has been classified, uh, like previously it was 0 to 6. Now the 10th edition of CTP has been rating it as 0 to 5. So the situation has been changing, and as the upgradation of the books are done, you have to quote the latest reference. So today I'll be looking into the definition of insight. We will also be looking at the various gradations of insights. Okay. So first we should be looking into the definition of insight. So insight is defined as the conscious awareness and understanding. So it is defined as the conscious awareness and understanding of number one, one's own psychological state, psychological state. Number two, symptoms of maladaptive behavior. And number three, it is need for treatment. So this is definition according to CTP and edition. Now we would look into the degrees of insight. According to CTP 10th edition, page number 967. Now the level of insight is from 1 to 5. All those previously, like I have been seeing a number of presentations, a number of like seminars in which they are labeling at 0 to 6 or 1 to 6. Now those are obsolete. What the current CTP says is 1 to 5. Now we'll look into each one of them. Level 1, complete denial of illness. So there is complete denial of illness by the patient. The patient completely fails to admit that he or she is ill. Second, slight awareness of being ill, being sick, and needing help, but denying at the same time. So the patient says that he might be ill and might need help, but he doesn't think that he's needing any sort of help. So the situation will be something like, at times he or she might admit that something is wrong, but will be mostly denying that there is no need for the treatment for the same. And another time, if you ask them, they'll totally deny that they are having sick. So these two important terms are like the two important components are slight awareness of being sick and needing help. This is the first component, and the second is but denying at the same time, that if you ask in deep, they'll definitely deny the need for treatment. So this is a very dicey situation. In three, yes, the patient is aware regarding the sequence, aware regarding being sick. This is important, that the patient is aware regarding being sick, but blaming the cause on others, number one. Number two, blaming on external factors. Number three, blaming on medical or unknown organic factors. So this is very important, that the patient is aware regarding being sick. The individual will say that he or she is ill, but the cause is that someone has done black magic on them. Someone from outside is doing something as a result of which he or she is being sick, or would be blaming it to some unknown organic factors. The individual might say that he doesn't know what is causing him to be ill, but he is ill. As opposed to the second one, which is that there is slight awareness of his sickness, and he might say that he needs help, but upon deeper interrogation, he might deny. He'll deny that there is no need for the treatment regarding the same. 4 is defined as the intellectual insight. Intellectual insight, it means that, first of all, the patient admits being ill. Number 2, it recognizes that the symptoms or failures in social judgment are due to irrational feelings or disturbances. But the important thing which is that these things, the patient is not applying the knowledge. That is these knowledge. Recognizes that the signs and symptoms, this particular knowledge, the individual is not applying in the future experiences. So the individual will admit that he or she is ill, and all the disturbances or all the difficulties that he or she had in social judgment were because of the rational feeling or disturbance that he was having. But if asked regarding the future course of action, if asked regarding the further consequences that he or she can have with the existing or because of the whatever the symptoms had, he or she might not be able to apply the knowledge and would not be able to answer the future experience accordingly. And the last, the 5 is defined as the true emotional insight. This is the 5th one. So the true emotional insight is the definition says it is the emotional awareness. Number 1. That is, it is an emotional awareness of motives and of feelings. So this is the emotional awareness of motives and the feelings. And this awareness of motives and feelings is within and of underlying meaning of symptoms. So the individual is able to is having awareness regarding whatever the motives and feelings were there, and it with respect to the set of symptoms that he was having, he is well aware of that. And the third component is that the patient is able to apply the knowledge to future experience. So the part that was not covered in intellectual insight, that part becomes covered in the true emotional insight. So these are the 5 levels or degrees of insight that you have to read. Forget all the past, the classification of 1 to 5, or like whatever they used to give 0 to 6 or 0 to 5. So this is the 5, these are the 5 degrees of insight which has been mentioned according to CTP 10th edition. So by this, we come to the end of the lecture number 1, in which we have completed the neurocognitive functions. We have done the headings, we have done how to do the test, rate the judgment and insight, and we have also done the various degrees of insight according to CTP. So so just revise. We'll be revising it in a go. That neurocognitive function includes a number of functions that has to be tested. First is the orientation, followed by attention and concentration, in which we'll be looking into the serial subtraction test, digit forward, digit backward. Next is the memory. Memory is tested under 3 headings: immediate, recent, and remote. Accordingly, we have seen how to test the memory. Next in the line comes intelligence. Intelligence involved 3 subheadings. So one is the general fund of knowledge, comprehension, arithmetic. Arithmetic is simple and complex. Okay, so general fund of knowledge could be asked about regarding the various specific things, but it has to be general to all. It shouldn't be specific. It has to be according to the occupation, according to culture background of the patient. Also, the second component is the comprehension, whether he or she understand the particular context or situation. Arithmetics, you can ask regarding the simple and the complex. Simple usually involves a single step calculation. Complex involves the multiple steps calculations. In the abstraction, again, we can do similarities and proverbs. Similarities and proverbs, we have already discussed how to do the similarities and proverbs. And according to the interpretation, we can label it as semi-abstract, full abstraction, or abstraction intact, or concrete. And then we can look into the judgment. Judgment, accordingly, we can judge for the personal, the social, and the test. If any of the judgment is not intact, you have to label whole judgment as impaired judgment. The last one was the insight. Insight, the 5 degrees, you have to write it in so how to give the interpretation of insight? So interpretation is usually given as 3 by 5, 4 by 5. Accordingly, you have to label to the situation. Okay. So I hope I was able to make you understand the various subheadings of neurocognitive functions and the various tests that we have to do. Okay. Follow me on Instagram. The handle is Psych Reads with Dr. Manish. It is the only one of its kind for the psychiatric residents in India. Nobody in India is actually providing such level of content from authentic sources with the quotations and from classical articles that is exclusively for the psychiatry residents. So do subscribe to the channel, and there is daily or almost 3 times a week we'll be posting the quizzes. Do attend them. Don't it doesn't matter whether it is wrong, you can read the slides and then you can attend the questions also. It actually helps you go learn daily something important. So do follow the channel, and thank you for listening to the video.